This is Mike, and welcome to this edition of the EcomCrew podcast. And hello from Las Vegas, Nevada. So this podcast episode is going to be a little bit different than a lot of the recent episodes in that I'm flying solo today. It's weird because, I don't know, the first 50 of the first 60 episodes of the EcomCrew podcast were either me or maybe Grant just kind of solo talking. Sometimes we talk together, but it was a very comfortable thing being flying solo on the podcast. But it's been a while. Almost everything that we've done recently, when I say recently, the last 100 episodes or more, maybe even 200 episodes have been interview style. And so it's definitely weird getting back on the mic solo again and just rambling on. But one of the things that I did this summer was called 75 Hard. And my team has been asking me to put together a podcast about this, which is now very long overdue because it's very far in the rearview mirror. But I thought it'd be a good idea to kind of do a recap of 75 Hard. And so let's start by setting the stage. Why did I even do this? Well, it's interesting when it comes to goals for business. I think a lot of entrepreneurs find it very easy to set goals and adhere to them. But unfortunately, when it comes to setting goals for taking care of yourself and things of that nature, sometimes it's hard to adhere to. It's very easy to say, I'm going to stick to XYZ diet or XYZ exercise program or whatever it is, but it's pretty quickly broken by all kinds of other outside influences. I know that I often try to eat a lot healthier and go out for a walk and exercise as much as I can. But, there's outside influences like friends that often derail this. And I find that a lot of the friends that I hang out with outside of e-commerce don't necessarily adhere to the most healthy lifestyle. You're kind of a part of people that you're around with that. But we have fun. So whether it's game nights or going out to the casino, playing poker, or whatever, there's a lot of things to be doing at night these days. A lot of people coming through town. Great food to eat here in Las Vegas. So it's easy to kind of break trend with that. And a lot of times there's also some other thing that's kind of like looming out there. Let's say it's a holiday or a party that you have, or someone's coming to visit. And so it becomes hard to say, I'm going to do XYZ for a certain period of time. But this summer, I guess it was late spring, early summer, a friend of mine who is a dear friend of mine who's in one of my masterminds that I always joke we would run in front of cars and traffic for. We're just that close. Came by actually just for a short while on his way back from visiting some national parks with his family. They just stopped in Vegas to have lunch with us and then went down the road. And I had been talking about doing 75 Hard in the mastermind group. It didn't really have any takers. And while he was here, he's like, let's do it. And so we put a pretty sizable bet on it of $10,000, which is obviously a crazy amount of money. And I think we both probably knew that without something like that we would have failed, right? It's easy to just be like, for $100, I'm going to go have a drink tonight, whatever it might be. For $1,000, maybe it's worth it at some point because it's right in the title. It's not easy. This is actually pretty damn hard to accomplish. And so for 10 grand, it became something that I felt like we had no choice but to accomplish, right? And it's sad that sometimes you need that type of motivation to get it done. But I guess if you know what your triggers are, the things that's going to keep you from falling off the wagon, so be it. And so that's what we did. And basically the bet was that if both of us complete 75 Hard, that neither one of us owed any money to the other. If one of us failed, we owed money to the other person. And if we both failed, we had to donate money to a charity that we would absolutely hate, right? So, a charity that abuses dogs or something, something really, really awful that I would never donate to normally. We'd have to make these donations, and the group was going to, our mastermind group was going to be kind of the referee of that. And so the thought of having to donate money to something that I absolutely don't believe in was a pretty big motivator, and or giving my friend $10K. And so let me go through what these tasks are. And I have my phone here because I had this app, the 75 Hard app, that I used every day. And I'm doing this on the video podcast too, so I'll just kind of show this to the screen for people that are looking at it on YouTube. But the first thing is you have to do 2 workouts a day, and each workout has to be at least 45 minutes. So you're working out for 90 minutes a day, which is pretty sizable for someone who wasn't working out anywhere near that much before starting 75 hard. One of the workouts had to be outdoors. That's like one of the things that is a parameter of 75 hard, is that one of the workouts has to be outside. Now, normally, for a lot of the year here in Las Vegas, that's pretty easy because it doesn't really rain a lot here. There really isn't a lot of inclement weather, but where it really became difficult was towards the end, the last 20 days or so of the challenge for me. Man, it started getting super hot here. We started this in the spring, and I was like enjoying my workouts every day. I was actually doing both workouts outdoors, really, really loving it, just being outside. I would put some earbuds in my ears and listen to podcasts again and some music, and just had this challenge of completing this walk run faster and faster every day. And I was out there doing it twice a day. Would take the dog for a walk. Man, in Vegas, you get 6, 7, 8 months a year of just like perfect weather where it's just absolutely amazing. But once the heat kicks in, man, does it kick in. It's like the oven really, really turns on. And it got to the point where, it was over 95 degrees at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it was just absolutely ridiculous. And, I really liked going for a walk with my dog, especially in the evenings. I would be on like a lonely trail. You just never know. You don't want to be walking around the middle of nowhere at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I like having my big German Shepherd with me when I take a walk. And, I just I don't feel good taking him when it's above 95. And so he did fine when it was about that temperature, but you take him out when it was like 97, 98. It was a lot of huffing and puffing, even just on a walk. And so it really threw my schedule off because, now I'm having to like wait till it got below 95 degrees. And, that, again, sometimes wasn't until 1 o'clock in the morning in the peak of when it really started getting hot. Like the furnace turned on early this year in Vegas. And so it turned this thing that I was really looking forward to every day. Like I really, really enjoyed, again, being out. I love being outdoors. Like we're back in this time of year now where I spend almost all my time outside as much as I can, except for sleeping. But like I do almost all my work outside right now, like with my laptop. I find myself out there reading and just relaxing, and it's just awesome. And just a quick side note: if you do hear any construction noise in the background, that is real. Those are not sound effects. Our bathroom has been under construction for months, and they're kind of in here working on it today. And I wanted to get this podcast out, so there could be some construction noise in the background. I do also want to apologize that's been kind of a thing, unfortunately, in the podcast the last couple of months here and there. Some people have let me know that. Unfortunately, that noise is picked up in the mic. We have a great mic here that doesn't pick up a lot of background noise, but when it's a saw or a jackhammer, unfortunately, it does come through. Anyway, back to what we were talking about, the twice-a-day workouts. And so, for the most part, it was fine. But when life kind of came around, there were times where it wasn't like I wasn't going out at all and doing anything any longer, right? So, and this was also at a time where it was at the bottom of the pandemic, I guess, where people were like had recently gotten vaccinated and everything was opening up again, and so there was like lots of things going on in Las Vegas I wanted to go do, and these workouts just became sometimes just like miserable. I'd get home at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning after being out for a bit, and you had to still go get a workout in, and it just when it's every single day and relentless, it's brutal. It really is brutal. The morning one was usually pretty easy because I had a routine. I was getting in a really good routine of going to bed, waking up in the morning, going out and doing that workout. But it was the evening one that became a huge problem. Just really, I tell you what, it got to a point where I really loathed doing this thing. But at the same time, I appreciated it. It's one of these things where now, unfortunately, post 75 hard, I'm lucky to get one workout in a day, definitely never 2, and just gotten back in bad shape again since completing the challenge, which is sad. Something I definitely want to work on. Might even attempt 75 hard again. I think it was just one of these things where you're forced to do the discipline, but maybe modify it in some way where it's only one workout a day. It definitely, again, it got to a point where the second workout was absolutely freaking brutal. Absolutely brutal. All right. So the other thing on the list of things you have to do is take a progress picture of yourself every day. That sounds incredibly easy, and it is. Obviously, all you do is take a picture. It's pretty cool going back and looking through all the pictures I had over that couple of months. Definitely can see a difference in my appearance from the start to the end. It definitely made a difference. I lost a few pounds and started just feeling a lot better from all the workouts, which is awesome. Every now and then you'd be like, oh crap, I forgot to take that picture. I remember one night where I was just so tired, I was laying in bed and I literally just turned the flash on and took a picture while I was in bed falling asleep, realizing that I almost lost the 75 hard challenge because I just completely slipped my mind to take that picture. It was pretty funny, actually. I remember that night, and I looked at that picture the other day as I was preparing for this podcast. Pretty funny that that was the thing that really almost broke me was that progress picture. But obviously pretty easy to do. The goal is just to be able to look at yourself and see, even though from day to day you might not notice any difference, over the course of 75 days, you definitely start to notice a difference. All right, the next thing on the list is to do 10 pages of reading a day. I have bought so many books that just end up laying on the shelf, unfortunately, where I have the intention of reading them, but I have ADD worse than I've ever had in my life at this point. There's just so many things in your life that really make someone who has ADD's life much more difficult. It's just Twitter and Facebook and email and every notification will popping through on your phone, Slack, et cetera, et cetera. And it's made it more difficult for me personally than ever to sit down and get any long work done, focused work. It's really tough. And reading's one of those things where, I feel like I need to have peace and quiet and just be locked in a room and be able to read with nothing else on my mind. It's funny. We just took a cruise. My wife and I just celebrated our 15th anniversary, which is awesome. And we took a cruise, and I didn't even get the internet package. I really wanted to take a real vacation. And because we had no internet and we were on the cruise, it was an Alaskan cruise, so a couple of those days you're just sailing. And I read almost 2 full books in that week. I mean, I really enjoyed sitting down, got a couple of really great books that I was really into. Finished the first one and realized I needed a second one. I had to download the second one when we got to a port because I brought a physical book with me thinking I would have a hard time finishing one. And then lo and behold, I almost got through 2. But in my day-to-day life, there's just always, because the internet's there and you have a cell phone in your hand, there's always something else to go read. I find that I read a lot of things in short bursts, and reading an entire book has become difficult. But because it's 75 hard, it forced me to do this. And I read a couple of books during those 60 days. First of all, let me just mention just real quick. We did modify it. We didn't do 75 days. We did 60 days. Now, this was agreed to ahead of time because both of us had travel plans from the day that we decided to go ahead and do it. We kind of looked at our calendar moving out, and both of us had something to go do travel-wise that was going to make 75 hard impossible. So we did 60 days. So I just want to make that clear. At any rate, I got through these books. The first one was called The Psychology of Money. I've talked a little bit about it on the podcast already. The perfect book for something like 75 hard because I think it's something like 23 chapters. I don't have the book in front of me. I've actually given it away to a friend because I just think it's a great book for everyone out there to read. The book is basically broken up into 10 to 12, maybe 15-page snippets. Each chapter lives on its own. Together, cumulatively, it adds up to one overriding principle. But each chapter really sits on its own. You could go in and just read chapter 7 if you wanted to, for instance, and it would make perfect sense. But it made it perfect for something like doing 75 hard because I woke up in the morning, I got myself on a really great routine where I woke up first, made myself a cup of tea and some water, hydrated, and was reading the book, and then would go out for my workout. And it was the perfect time. I could read those 10 pages in 10 to 15, sometimes 20 minutes. A couple of those chapters took a little bit longer because I would sit and reflect and think about them and read a small passage over again in some cases. But it was just perfect. It was perfect timing to get down, again, a cup of tea and a glass of water, get hydrated, get ready to go, get my morning workout in. And I really love that book. I highly recommend it. It's a book that I can wholeheartedly say that I wish someone had handed me 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, when I was in my early 20s. It really kind of gets into better money habits, better psychology around how you view your money, how you spend your money. I think it's a very easy trap to get into in the United States, especially if you live in the U.S., to want to live with impress the Joneses, as you will. And so have a nice car, have a bigger house, go on bigger trips, have a nicer watch, whatever it might be. And the reality is that stuff doesn't make you any happier. I've had to learn these lessons on my own the hard way. I think that in some cases, as a kid, you have to put your hand on the hot stove and burn yourself before you realize not to do it again, even though your parents might tell you this over and over again. Unfortunately, I didn't really have any good guidance from that perspective as a kid. And so all these things I learned the hard way, and really wish that someone had handed me this book when I was younger. And even though I feel like I've learned a lot of these lessons, just reading the book really solidified things even more, and has given me a couple more ideas. And so I highly recommend the book. There's very few books that I recommend at this level. Traction is one of them. If you listen to the podcast, book that kind of changed my life. The Psychology of Money would have been one of those books had I read it sooner in life, but certainly still had a great impact, and an impact in where I feel like I need to pay it forward by getting other people to read it is probably one of those things as well. So the thing that I took away more than anything in the book is that you constantly move the goalposts when it comes to money. And so, I think when I was young, the thought of having $1 million, for instance, was just like inconceivable to me. And I can remember thinking if I had $1 million, I could live the rest of my life and never have to work again. And it would just be like this amazing thing, like unobtainable thing to kind of dream about, be amazing. Next thing you know, later in life, got $1 million, and it's not enough. Now you have a goalpost of 5 million, and maybe when you get to that point, you move it to 10, move it to 25. It's never really enough, and so you keep on moving the goalpost, and so that really, I feel like I had kind of gotten to a point where I wasn't doing that anymore. But reading it and really comprehending it and thinking about it in the ways that the book put it really cemented it. And so I can tell you, like, wholeheartedly at this point, that I have a number that my wife and I were marching to. And when we get there, it's game over. It just lights out. See ya. You move on to the next thing in life that won't be work. And it feels like that's relatively close because we're, marching towards this number that I think we can get to, and the goalpost will not be moved again. Like, that's something that I'm very confident in, where I know previously that got me in a lot of trouble because it's never enough with money. So great book. Thanks 75 Hard for forcing me to read that. The other one was this book, Essentialism, which I have here. I haven't given this one away. This book I found to be frustrating, honestly, just from the perspective of, like, I hate books that are, what is this thing, 300 pages or so long. This one's 275. That could have been 10 pages, maybe 15 pages. I found myself struggling to get through this book every day. When I got up, I didn't want to really read the next chapter because I felt like I got it already. It's like, okay, like, I understand the point of this book. I agree with the point of the book, which is basically to, like, really focus on one thing and only focus on the things that are essential in the business instead of all the other things that we get off the beaten path on. I love the cover because it's like, a squiggly line that's like all over the place versus a straight line that gets you there much quicker. And so, concept of the book, A++, highly recommend. There's this thing called Blinkist, which you can read summaries of a book in 10 to 15 minutes. I think that this would have been a great blink versus the long read that it was. But I was already into it, and it was a part of my 75 Hard routine. So I did finish it. Again, I felt like it was painful getting to the end, but definitely a great message that I would recommend. All right, so the 10 pages of reading, again, I think it's a great habit. I've been reading more, significantly more, after doing 75 hard than before I was in 75 hard. But it's a habit I wish that I really could force myself to stick to every morning. I just find that sometimes I get up a little bit late, and make excuses, and end up not reading, or I'm reading just a bunch of useless crap on social media or something that I could spend my time doing better. All right, the next task was drink 1 gallon of water a day. This one was a little controversial because as we were going through the challenge, friends of mine would be sending me these articles about how drinking a gallon of water a day is not healthy, or can be unhealthy. I already drink a lot of water normally, especially since we moved to Las Vegas, back to Las Vegas. Probably not a gallon of water. Actually, I know definitely not a gallon of water a day, but between a half and 3/4 of a gallon. And so my body's already was used to drinking quite a bit of water. Where it can be dangerous is if you're not used to doing that and you start chugging tons of water, you can actually kill yourself by drinking too much water. There's some really interesting material that I read. I'm not a doctor, but in short, the thing is that your body will regulate you to a certain spot that you have to be within, and it needs minerals, and your blood pH stuff has to be in a certain level to survive. And if you drink less water, your body will regulate to that. If you drink more water, your body will regulate to that. But if you drink too much water too fast, you can throw things out of whack and actually kill yourself. And I don't think that drinking a gallon of water puts you in that danger zone, but certainly there was some interesting stuff about this, and it just even makes me more mind blown about how the human body can work. Basically, a lot of the content that I read on the subject that my friends were sending me was that, in general, if you're not doing 75 hard, if you're thirsty, drink. If you're not, you don't need to drink. Your body will regulate itself just fine. There's water in everything that you eat, everything you consume. If you eat an apple, it's mostly water. If you eat steak, there's water content in the steak. And so, certainly not out there advocating not to drink, but some of the content and podcasts that I listen to, super interesting that really the capitalistic society that we live in has really convinced us that we need to drink more than we probably need to. And Gatorade was really at the forefront of this. Really interesting podcast. I'll see if I can find that podcast at some point and put it in the show notes. It kind of blew my mind. And things like Dasani and these other water companies have convinced us that we need to drink more water. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not recommending anything. I haven't really changed my habits a whole lot based on this content because I feel like I drink enough water. I felt like a gallon was a lot. It made me pee a lot. Something that I only would have done because of 75 hard. But I did it. It was one of these things where you had to be very disciplined. I every night before I went to bed, I put together my little chemistry set of water bottles. I had them sitting over by the water cooler because I had to measure the water out and make sure that I was on pace every day. Because if you wait till like 5 o'clock and all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, I haven't had any water yet, you'll never catch up. Like you can't physically chug that much water. You'll be full and bloated, and it's just absolutely brutal. So start my morning again, glass of tea, which to me I count as water. Maybe that's cheating a little bit. But it's all water just with some brewed tea leaves in it. And then I would have a glass of water along with that, with a hydration tablet in it, which I've been taking now for the last many years, ever since the doctor was like, you're low on potassium and some minerals that are important to you. So I take that hydration tablet every day. That was my first thing of water. I would go out and go for that walk, run, come back, have another glass of water, and just stay on this pace all day long, constantly measuring or monitoring like where I was at. In terms of how much water I've consumed, and very rarely got to the end of the day where I was like, oh crap, I have to drink a bunch of water, because then, at night you're having to get up and pee and a whole bunch of things that are other things that can screw with you. So that was actually a relatively easy thing for me to adhere to because it was easy to measure and stick to. But the other stuff was kind of an aside with the the other content I got. All right, so the next thing on the list here is follow a diet. And I don't know, I'll group the next thing in along with it, which is it's follow a diet, and then the second line item here is no cheat meals or alcohol. So, the diet you pick, it can be any diet, and you just have to adhere to it, and you can't cheat for any reason over this time period. So for me, this was one of these things where I picked something that I knew I could adhere to and wasn't going to be ridiculous to the point where I couldn't go out and I was going to be miserable. And so I picked to do intermittent fasting as my diet, which again, a little bit of a cop-out because I do intermittent fasting anyway. But the thing is that sometimes I cheat. And so I didn't cheat. I just made sure that I only ate between noon and 8. And if I had to move that window, then so be it. Sometimes we did have dinner a little bit later, but that meant that I couldn't eat again until 1 p.m. the following day. And then, my eating window would probably be, that next day would have been 7 hours instead of 8. So it was pretty easy to just kind of modify that because like intermittent fasting basically is saying, in the way that I try to do it, is that it's 18 hours between meals, between your last meal of the day and your first meal of the following day, or 16 hours, sorry. And so, I have this 8-hour window that I eat in, and now I try to do 18, which is why I mentioned that. That's just something I've been trying to squeeze that window to be shorter and shorter. So that was easy. There was a couple of times where it was kind of inconvenient where, again, we're out with friends and that became a little bit of a challenge, but overall, of all the things on the list, that was the easiest. The other part of it, no drinking, was a struggle, I gotta say, but not to the level that I thought it would be. My friends are pretty cool about this. I have friends that definitely egg me on to drink more often than I want to. A lot of times I'll be like, I don't want to drink, and they come on, they try to put a drink in my hand. But they, a lot of my friends are kind of poker players and have some gamble in them in some way. That's why we're all kind of friends. And they fully understand that there was 10K on the line. And so they didn't push me. They were just like, okay, he's not drinking, which was kind of cool. And I felt like because I took a pass, I guess, on the easier intermittent fasting diet thing, my friend that I did this with is actually an alcoholic and hasn't had a drink in, I don't know exactly how many years it is, but decades, or definitely over a decade. And so that was his lifestyle anyway. So he got an easy one on the no alcohol, and I got an easier one on the intermittent fasting. Even though again, it's not so easy sometimes to do that. But man, I felt so much better not drinking for a couple of months. I got these non-alcoholic beers and spirits, so like I could still drink something. Kind of like, I think a lot of it is just like that nervous habit of like when you're with friends and hanging out, of just taking a drink of something. And it was kind of cool, just having some non-alcoholic beers. Man, there's some really good ones out there, that taste just like a regular beer. And, yeah, that was kind of cool. So we and actually I still drink them. Like, even though now I'm past 75 hard, I've really been trying to cut back on the amount of alcohol I drink. There's really no argument that it's, not good for you. I mean, I don't think that there's anybody that's going to argue that drinking alcohol is good for you. So, especially as we get older. And so just really been trying to cut back as much as possible anyway. And so I find myself just drinking more of these non-alcoholic beers, which are awesome. The ones I like the most are from a company called Athletic Brewing Company. No affiliate offer or anything like that here. Just an honest review of somebody that was looking for stuff to drink through this period. Tried a whole bunch of other stuff that I thought sucked. Won't throw anybody under the bus, but really enjoyed the Athletic Brewing stuff. And again, still drinking that. They have all their flavors are awesome in my mind. So the other task, and it's interesting, I'm actually looking at this app, and they've added tasks that were not on here before. So this is interesting. I'm seeing this in real time because I think that was the last thing that I had. But now they've added on here a 5-minute cold shower, which was definitely not on my list when I first had the app and did 75 hard. 8 power list critical tasks and 10 minutes dedicated visualization. So that's interesting. Those are 3 new tasks, I guess, that have been added to the 75 hard program since I completed it, which is interesting. I have to go read about what some of these things are. I definitely don't know exactly what they mean by 8 power list critical tasks and 10 minutes of dedicated visualization. that's interesting. I was just kind of cheating along here with the app as I was going through, but I think that was the list of tasks that I had to adhere to. I don't think there was anything else that I had to do. But again, it sounds easy doing that for, in my case, 60 days straight without cheating at all, not having a single drink, not having any meals outside of intermittent fasting window, getting up and doing a workout every morning, doing another one in the evening, 2 workouts a day, one of which had to be outside when it's like freaking brutally, miserably hot. And I would come back super sweaty, have to take another shower, and it would take me much longer to wind down. It was kind of screwing with my sleep, so I was getting up later. It was hard to get that first workout in. Doing that all for that period of time is definitely difficult, but like at the end, it felt unbelievably satisfying to accomplish and try to instill some good habits, which is important. And I don't know. I'd love to hear from you. Something that you think you want to do, give it a shot. Maybe I'll do version 2 of it again sometime before the end of the year or early next year. And maybe we can do an EcomCrew 75 hard challenge. It could be kind of interesting, kind of neat. But definitely love to hear people that have tried something like this or are interested in it. Drop us a line. Love to hear from you. Thank you for sticking with me today on my 30 or so minute ramble about 75 hard. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Some different content here and there. When you're at podcast 420 or so, it gets more and more difficult to find interesting, cool things to talk about. And my team thought that this would be a good change of pace. We'll be back with another episode that's kind of more in line with what EcomCrew's been doing next week. Until then, happy selling. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for your support, everybody. Bye-bye.